Mistake number 4 out of 10 when saving for retirement. In this episode, I'm going to address the question, what mistakes do people make when saving for retirement? This is mistake number 4 out of 10. Get ready. You're probably going to be surprised about this mistake as well as others. I want you to watch all of them in this series because I want you to avoid these mistakes or correct them before it's too late. So my name's Doug Andrew, and I've been a retirement planning specialist now for more than 4.5 decades. And so I've seen thousands of people prepare for retirement, and oftentimes when they would come to me, I had to correct some of the mistakes that they had already been making, and they didn't know any better. They were sort of following the herd. Well, mistake number 4 that retirees make is setting aside money, socking money away into traditional accounts like IRAs and 401ks. We call these qualified plans, thinking that's the best way to save for retirement because everybody's doing it, right? No, it's not the best way. And people have a rude awakening when they hit retirement, and all of a sudden they find themselves in as higher tax bracket as they were ever in during their earning years. Hence, one of the other mistakes is thinking you're going to be in a lower tax bracket. And that's one of the big reasons why people tell me, well, my employer offered a 401k and they matched 50 cents on the dollar and everybody's doing it. And they told me I'd likely be in a lower bracket. Well, that has not been true or axiomatic for over 25 years. But still, people think, well, it's not the best way. How come everybody's doing it? They just sort of follow the herd. So mistake number 4 is thinking that socking away money in tax-deferred accounts like IRAs or 401ks is the best way to go because everybody's doing it. Well, I learned a long time ago to not follow the herd and don't pay attention to the mainstream media because they're part of the herd. Best advice I've ever received. So let's talk about why they're not the best way to save. In fact, I have a little ditty that goes good, better, best. Never let it rest. Never let it rest till good gets better and better gets best. I used to say that IRAs and 401ks used to be a good way to go, but a far cry from the best way to go. Frankly, I think now they are a poor way to go. Are you ready to learn why? Oftentimes, I would tell my audiences that would come to learn about the best ways to save for retirement that deferred taxes just mean increased taxes. Because as I've shared in this series, most people, when I ask them, do you think that taxes in the future, tax rates are going to be lower? Nobody raises their hands. And when I ask how many think taxes will stay the same, very few raise their hands. But when I ask how many of you think the taxes will likely be higher, a sea of hands goes up. I go, well then why are you continuing to defer paying tax to the future until you have this big nice nest egg in IRAs or 401ks and now you're going to pay higher tax rates? That doesn't make sense. And they go, wow, I've never thought of it that way. I've just been told I would be in a lower bracket. Well, no, that is not true. I've had school teachers who found themselves paying back every dime they saved in taxes. Over 30 years of contributing money to IRAs and 401ks, the first 2.5, 3 years of retirement, they pay back 100% of the taxes they saved over 30 years on the contributions. And they continue to pay it back again and again and again, to where by the time both a husband and wife pass away, many of them have paid back 12 to 15 times the taxes during their golden years, what they saved over 30, 35, 40 years on the contribution phase. When I asked them, so why did you do it? Well, everybody was doing it. I started working for my employer, and the HR person said, now you want to participate in the company's 401k, don't you? And you go, oh, yeah. In fact, if you contribute up to 6%, we will match 50 cents on the dollar on the first 6%. And then people would go, golly, I'm getting a 50% rate of return. I'd go, no, you're not. You're starting out with 50% more. You put in $1, your employer is matching 50 cents on that. Now you got $1.50. You pull out the $1.50 when you're vested, and you can do that. You pull out the $1.50, and where does the 50 cents go? To the government in tax. So your employer is helping you out to help you pay future tax liability on a portion of your money. That's what that 50% match is about. But you would not believe how many people that I would meet that instead of putting in just the 6% to get the match, they were putting in up to 15%. And I would go, why are you doing that? Well, is there something better? And I go, yeah. You're in the market, it's volatile, and that's the number one mistake people make when they retire. But not only that, you're putting money into this tax deferred account, and deferred taxes mean increased taxes. Another synonym for defer would be procrastinate. When have you ever procrastinated and it turned out good? Very rarely has it ever turned out to be wise to procrastinate. Usually it turns out to be bad. And that's what happens when people continue to defer or put off paying taxes to some future perceived unknown advantage. And then they have to start pulling out money out of a qualified account. See, an IRA or 401k is a qualified plan. Qualified with who? The government. See, they're your partner. If Uncle Sam were to go into a partnership with you and say something like this, okay, we're going to be partners. Let's shake on this. Now, I get a third of everything you will ever make in this business. And if you want to start taking money out of this business before the age of 59 and a half, I'm going to charge you another 10% on top of my third. But by the time you're age 72, you better start taking distributions or sell this business, or else I'm going to penalize you 50% on top of my third. See, that's called a required minimum distribution. Do you know, if you do not start withdrawing money out of an IRA or 401k starting at age 72, based on the government's life expectancy formula, the penalty is 50%, 50, on top of the tax, because Uncle Sam wants his portion of your money. They've been planning on that tax revenue. That's why I say, man, whose retirement were you planning anyway, yours or Uncle Sam's? So your partner says, I reserve the right to be able to penalize you, but if I deem any time in the future that I'm more hard up than you, I can raise my share from a third up to 50%, even 60% or more. Would you go into business with a partner like that? People go, absolutely not. And then I say, I just described an IRA or 401k to you. The government gets to decide how much they want of your IRA or 401k at the time you're going to take money out, because they have an addiction to spending, if you haven't noticed. So I do not recommend people put money into traditional IRAs or 401ks thinking it's the best way to save just because you're following the herd. There are better ways and best ways. You may think, is he talking about a Roth? A Roth IRA or 401k is a step in the right direction if you think taxes are going to be higher. But I've never owned an IRA or 401k, and I never will, and I've never owned a Roth IRA or 401k, and I never will. You can learn why and what's far better than even a Roth. Roths only have two benefits. You fund them with after-tax dollars. They accumulate tax-free, and you can access the money tax-free. I have those two benefits in my favorite vehicle, which I call the Laser Fund. I wrote a book with that title. But I have 4 additional benefits Roths will never have. I can contribute $30,000, $50,000, $100,000, $300,000 into a laser fund if I design it to do that. You cannot contribute that much to a Roth. You're limited to a certain dollar amount or a certain percent of your income because it's a qualified plan. There's strings attached. Do I have to put in 100,000 or 300,000 into a laser fund? No. I can put in 10,000. I don't even have to put in anything. And in future years, I can make up for what I could have put in previous years. If you don't use the room in a given tax year to contribute to a Roth, you lose it forever. But if I put in $300,000 and 30 days later, I need to access $250,000, I can. There's no penalties. With a Roth, the IRS will penalize you if you touch it in the first 5 years or before you're age 59 and a half. Those are strings attached. In the laser fund, I can access money at any time for any reason without any IRS penalties. I can use indexing so that I'm protected from the market volatility, which is the number one mistake in this series. But I also can take it out because it's tax-free. I have all the benefits of a Roth, but it continues to be tax-free without all of the strings attached. But when I ultimately die, it blossoms, it increases in value and transfers income tax-free. There's not an IRA or 401k or a Roth that will do that. People say, what do you mean by blossom? I'm 69. If I died in an accident next week, every million I would have in a portfolio of laser funds would blossom to about 2.5 million tax-free and transfer to my wife, my kids, a church, a charity. There's not a Roth around that'll do that. And people say, well, how much does that cost? Nothing's free, but it doesn't cost me anything. It's being paid for with a minuscule portion of money that most people shell out in unnecessary income tax when they follow the herd and put money into traditional IRAs or 401ks. So when you study this book, you'll see that IRAs and 401ks are not the best way to save, why there's something far better and even the best. Go to laserfund.com, click on the link below, contribute a nominal amount towards the shipping and handling, and I'll fire out a copy to you. It's 300 pages with charts, graphs, explanations, and 62 actual stories. But then there's also options there to listen and learn and watch and learn, and you can correct the mistake before it's too late and get your money out of those IRAs or 401ks sooner than later with what we call strategic rollouts. Empower yourself.